about their problems. When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, there was no attacks from any Muslim country against Saddam Hussein for his occupation and the rape of Kuwait. So these are mere excuses. Islam claims to be a religion, yet it's a cult. A cult is always defined by elevating a man. Muslims do elevate Muhammad as God, even though they deny it, because they give him the title Al-Maqam Al-Mahmud. But it's a cult that drives the masses. It's a cult-like process that drives the masses in unison in order to use historic manipulation. And this is what the excuses are. They are historic manipulations and manipulation of political issues and facts on the reality on the ground. And they use these manipulations in order to resonate back to the glory days. It's really a throwback. What we see today with Islam is a throwback to the glory days when Islam was triumphant against Christendom. Since today Christendom seems to supersede in industry and civilization, Islam wants to basically have a comeback and wants to revive its ugly head and rule the roost as it was in the glory days. And all it is, it's really a reflection to the past. This is why when you listen to Muslims, they always talk about the past, the glory days, Salah ad-Din, Umar ibn al-Khattab, so on and so forth. So it's a jealousy issue. It's a major jealousy issue, with the Judeo-Christian world. And they want to basically have a come at it and take over the West.
Let's turn it back over to Bill so that you can help clarify when you say that it's a political act. If politics and religion are intertwined in Islam, how can we tell, or how, in your perspective, how can you tell if the act was purely political versus purely religious, which a lot of people claim?
There's a very simple criteria for this. Let's for the moment consider the doctrine of Islam to be a bar magnet, which has a south pole and a north pole. And let's consider the same element in the side of the doctrine of Islam. It has a political end and a religious end. So how do we know which part of Islam we're dealing with, the religion or the politics? Remember, I approach everything about my study of Islam from the standpoint of the kafir. So therefore, I ask the kafir, how do we determine whether this is a religion, or a religious act, a religious statement, or a political act, or a political statement? That's easy to determine. Does it affect me? Does the action of a Muslim require action on my part? Does my school board need to meet? Does my legislature need to consider different laws? Does my military or my police have to take action because of what you did or said? If so, by definition, it is political. It cannot be religious because I'm not involved with the religion. So therefore, if the statement, action, words, or verse affects me, it is political because I am an outsider. So to me, it's very simple to determine the difference between a religious act. If they're praying at the mosque, that doesn't affect me. If they're fasting during Ramadan, that doesn't affect me. But if my human resource director says that I can no longer eat lunch at my desk because there are fasting Muslims around, I have been asked to take a political action. I'm not fasting. Let them fast. But once it affects me, that process I define as political. It can't be religious even though they're fasting. The demand for me, if I can't eat lunch at my desk because Muslims could see me while they're fasting, is political. So to me, it's trivial to sort out the idea, is this action political or religious? And by the way, there may be a religious aspect to it. It's just that I don't care. Now, Kamal is right. If you're going to deal with the religious side of it, then the religion itself becomes important. But from a political act, for instance, I care nothing about the salvation of a Muslim one way or the other. Speaking from a political viewpoint, as a human being, I do not want them to suffer by making wrong choices. But I'm just emphasizing what I mean when I say something is political. It affects me. I'm a kafir. So I have sort of a very functional definition here. But let me tell you something. The ability to discern politics from religion is, in my opinion, one of the great questions about Islam, because I deal with politicians, And they're all confused because, you see, if the religion is protected by the Constitution, and if they want to say that we can commandeer the street to pray in it, and that's a religious act, then our politicians are very confused. Our human resource directors are very confused. Everything the Muslim says, they say, well, this is our religion, therefore we can do it. And by the way, that argument seems to work exceedingly well in America today. People are so afraid of being a bigot that once the Muslim waves the flag of religion in the air, the bureaucrats' knees begin to quake. The politician's spine begins to waffle. So I think that the issue being discussed here tonight is of overwhelming importance, because in America today, the religion of Islam may not be criticized, nothing. In the newspapers, it's considered bigotry to criticize Islam. So, but if it's a political system, surely we can still discuss politics. So I think the issue that's being discussed tonight is actually critical to our own survival as a civilization. We have to parse and separate out religion from politics.
And I'd like to turn it over to Kamal, and then we have to take a quick, Waleed, and then we'll take a quick break. America still views Islam as simply just a religion. Organizations like CARE still exist, or that we're seeing a push of Islam in this country still because it's only viewed as a religion?
Yes, well, they do claim it's a religion, and the political pundits do the same thing. However, after hearing the comments from our brother, some might argue and say, well, wait a minute. I mean, Christians also have, they want prayer in school, which is a political act, and so on and so forth. But it goes beyond even praying on the sides of the road, as he said. The problem with the political act of Islam is that it wants to slowly change the Constitution. American Christians, try to pass legislation about abortion, so on and so forth. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about passing legislation to make our laws to become Sharia compliant. Sharia is a set of civil code that we're talking about. So this, it's a civil code. It's even forgetting the violent acts of Islam. In the civil code of Islam, that it involves inheritance. It changes laws that doesn't only affect Christians. It changes laws that affects anyone, whether they're Buddhist, whether they're Muslim, whether they're Jews, whether they're any religion. It affects every life of every American, not just the Christian or the Muslim per se. Because once you make laws that a Muslim woman inherits half the man, or her testimony is equal half the man's testimony, then it becomes an issue of discrimination. We have discriminated against Americans. This discrimination goes even beyond that. We go to the airport. Americans are being scrutinized on TSA and everything else, where CARE is requesting that American women is not to be checked on these new machines. So then they have a special privilege. The whole issue is that the Islamic political movement is trying to create a special privilege for the Muslim and a lower privilege for non-Muslims. In other words, it is a racist ideology and a system of government that wants to basically allow the Muslim to become superior to the non-Muslim.
Thank you, Kamal. What we have to do right now, take a quick break. When we come back, we'll start to take your phone calls. Our number is 248-416-1300. We'll be right back.
واعلم أن الدين الحق هو دين الإسلام وما دون ذلك أديان مزيفة باطلة منسوخة بشريعة محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام.
Good evening. This is Pastor Dwayne again, and hopefully you are enjoying the show tonight, Jihad Exposed. One of the things we want to make sure is that the truth is told, and we do not want to live our lives without the truth. In fact, I'd like to bring a point, is Galatians chapter 5. The Apostle Paul writes, "It is for freedom's sake, or for freedom, that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." If you are being educated tonight on this show, and if you watched just earlier with Jesus or Muhammad, We are in the midst of a marathon for 2 weeks, raising money to set up 3 new satellites, going to 3 new countries, 3 new nations that will be able to give the truth to our loved ones. Truth about jihad, truth about Islam, so that we can understand. It is very relevant, as we have said tonight, in the political realm. Are we looking just at religion, or are we looking at our freedom as human beings right now? Freedom that we are equally made in the sight of our God. And right now, some are saying no. So at this point, I'd like to show to you that you can donate to ABN so that this truth can be told throughout the world. Send a check to P.O. Box 724, Walled Lake, Michigan, 48390. Your donation can be made online at www.abnsat.com or give us a call, 248-416-1300. We take Visa, MasterCard, and Discover, and your donation can help the truth be told. So hope you enjoy the rest of this evening and learn from who we have brought. Summer, back to you.
Jihad has come to America.
Constitutes the most devastating series of terrorist attacks in history.
The only deen Allah accepts is Al-Islam. And whoever seeks any other deen apart from Islam will never be accepted.
Allahu Akbar!
And we stand together to win the war against terrorism.
But you too will make your destruction.
Welcome back to Jihad Exposed live on ABN. If you have friends who don't have the satellite and want to watch this program and all of our other programs, all you have to do is refer them to abnsat.com. This show will also be uploaded to the website within 24 hours of its live broadcast. And our phone lines are open, so make sure you call us live on the air to ask our panelists any questions, or if you have any comments that you'd like to make. Our number is 248-416-1300. Before I turn it to Kamal, Bill, on your website, which was intriguing, so I'd like our audience to hear it from you. You have this. You talk about dualistic ethics in political Islam, and then you go into the different ways on how Islam teaches to treat kafirs. So can you go into that a little so that our audience has a brief background on that?
A religion is a man's personal decision. And what I care about the man is not his religion as such. What I care about any person in a face-to-face, neighbor-to-neighbor way is what is the person's character and what is the person's ethics. Now, let me say immediately that ethics and religion go hand in hand. So I'm not saying I'm neglecting religion, but I'm saying that I can tell from a person's religion, whether I like it or not, when I ask myself the question, do I like the ethics that it produces? Now, notice here that I'm being very egocentric in that I am relating about Islam as to myself. This isn't an abstraction. So, where do we find the ethics of Islam? Well, we find the ethics of Islam where we find all of Islam, in the Quran, in the Sirah, and in the Hadith. And what we find is that there are ethical statements in, for instance, the Hadith. A Muslim is a brother to another Muslim. Well, I look at that and I go, well, I'm not included in the mix, am I? In particular, I look around and I sort through Quran, Sirah, Hadith, and I keep looking for a golden nugget. And that golden nugget, which is the most critical thing about any human being I want to interact with, is does this person try to live his life according to the golden rule? Now, the golden rule is very interesting because it's a universal, unified set. It says, do unto others. Which others? All others. Black, white, short, tall, fat, skinny. All others. But within Islam, we don't find the golden rule. What we find is that there's sets of actions to be taken with another person, depending on if they're a Muslim or not. So this is what I call dualistic